Oh yeah, that's how much I'm jealous. Something drastically. Sure than Rani.
So welcome and greetings, everyone. We'll start by reciting the verse that says, do not commit any negative actions, establish only perfect virtue, subdue your mind thoroughly. This is the teaching of the Buddha. So in this verse, the first line says, do not commit any negative action. And the second one says, establish only perfect virtue. So virtue becomes perfect when it is very good quality, meaning it has to be very good quality at the beginning, in the actual part, and at the end. The reason why it is phrased like this is because if we see what is it that we desire is to have happiness, and what is it that we wish to avoid, we don't desire, is suffering. However, these happiness and suffering are results that come from their respective causes. The happiness that we desire comes from perfect virtue. And this is why the verse says, commit only or establish only perfect virtue. The suffering that we don't wish to experience is something that comes from negativity. And this is why the verse says, do not commit any negative action. So we're looking at the causes and the results of happiness and suffering. But if we look at our situation, we see that the negativity that we engage is really very strong, whilst the virtue that we establish is something which is very weak. And this explains the situation we find ourselves in, like we are unhappy with troubles, with suffering, we're not successful, have many obstacles, and so forth. So here we are still within samsara, one rebirth after the next. And we keep, creating the causes for results. So it's very important to pay attention to this instruction that says establish perfect virtue. So establish perfect virtue here, it means that it has to be perfect at the beginning, in the middle, at the end. And in the beginning, what has to be properly in place is the motivation.
Oh yeah, that Gulung ya would you be torn any? Candela Sanya Chuzo than this one is.
Okay, so to adjust the motivation properly, we will do refuge and Gantar Lagema. All right, so we continue with number 2, that is discernment. And discernment is explained as the one that apprehends the marks of the focal object. So by apprehending the marks of the focal object is able to designate, to impute designations. So it is looking at a particular object, and when it looks at the object, it has a particular way of apprehending the object. So what it does, it apprehends the signs or the specific characteristics of that object. And in that way, it starts designating and saying, this is long, this is short, this is male, this is female, this is a child, and so on and so forth. All right, so as you can see, it imputes, it differentiates by looking at specific characteristics, and then it designates. So if we look at the terminology of the Tibetan is Geshe. Geshe, it means, the second part is Shepa, meaning awareness or cognize. So it's a type of cognizer. And the first part, the do means it gathers all the uncommon characteristics of this object. So it gathers the characteristics, and by gathering characteristics, recognizing characteristics, it's able to designate. So this is what discernment is. All right. So when we look at discernment, okay, discernment, it means if you have discernment, you're able to say, this is this, this is that. Okay. So we have two types of discernment: discernment that apprehends marks and discernment that apprehends sound. The discernment that apprehends marks is awareness that is non-conceptual. So you know how we have this differentiation of awareness into conceptual and non-conceptual. So if it is discernment apprehending marks, it's non-conceptual awareness that holds or apprehends the uncommon marks, the uncommon characteristics of the object. So this is one type. The other type is discernment that apprehends sound. And this is the type of awareness that is actually conceptual. So it is conceptual and it's thinking, like it gives the name, like me, or, you know, it gives the name of the object. So when we talk about discernment, discernment has to engage some basis, some foundation. And here we have three possibilities. The first one is through seeing or not seeing. The second one is through hearing or not hearing. And the third one is making specific differentiations. Okay, or differentiating the specifics. Okay, so the first one, that is discernment that comes through seeing. So here it has to rely upon eye direct perceiver, like valid awareness, seeing the object. And by seeing this object, it will then apply a name, a convention. Right, and it will say, my eyes saw this, and by relying on what I saw, I can say it is this or it is not that. Okay. The second one is through hearing. So here you are relying on hearing the words that you have heard. So without seeing the actual object, you have just heard the words describing it or explaining something to you. And then you have the discernment who says, oh, according to what I heard, the sound that I heard, it is this, or it is not that. Okay. The third one is where you classify or you're making distinctions. So this one, you have to, you apply the designation by relying on the certainty that you obtain by relying on some reasoning. So for example, you say, this is long, but you say that something is long, you must have a reason, right? It is not long without a reason. When you discern and say, oh, this item is very long, you must have a reason. So by relying on the reason, you have ascertained a certain characteristic, and then you apply the designation and say, this is long or this is short. So that was the presentation according to the according to number kundu. So now we come to the presentation according to Abhidharma. So according to the Abhidharma, discernment there are two types of discernment. We have discernment apprehending the signs of meaning and discernment apprehending the signs of conventions. All right, so the first one, apprehending the signs of meaning, it's going to apprehend something. In both cases, it apprehends something through examining. In the first case, when we say it apprehends the meaning, it means it apprehends the actual object, the nature of the object. So it says it understands that, for example, that this is blue as opposed to being red. In the second case, where it apprehends through the signs of convention. Convention here means name. It means it examines names. And directly it says, This is the vase, this is the pillar. So in the second case, it's just dealing with the names of things. If we want to classify according to the basis, there are 6 types of discernment. So we mentioned this last week as well. When we say we classify by means of the basis here indicates the cause. All right. So what is the cause of discernment? What gives rise to discernment? So first of all, we have to have contact. So having contact becomes the condition that gives rise to discernment. You have to come in contact with something and then develop or generate the discernment. Okay, so this contact now, which is the cause for generating discernment, can occur in 6 ways, 6 different ways. You can have contact that happens in the sphere of the eyes, contact in the area of the ears, in the area of the nose, in the area of the tongue, in the area of the body, or in the area of the mind. So in these 6 ways, you can have 6 different types of contact, and each one of them will give rise to discernment. So we have 6 types of discernment. So if we want to classify the discernment according to its focal object, again, we have 6, but it's a different list of 6. So the first 2 in this list of 6 is discernment with signs and discernment without signs. These are number 1 and number 2. So the first one, discernment, we will continue with the list, but we are explaining one at a time. Okay, so discernment with signs is discernment that analyzes and understands the connection between the definition and the object defined. So in other words, it understands the connection between the term and the meaning or the object, right? We have an object and we give it a name, isn't it? Okay, so for example, it's the one that discerns that compounded phenomena are impermanent. The second one in that list is the opposite of the first one, and this is why it is called discernment without signs. All right, so in this case, it's not looking at the connection between the object defined and the definition, or the object and its name, right? So in this case, in the first case, it focuses on that. In the second case, it is not observing that. Okay, then we come to number 3 in the list. It's called the limited discrimination, or the small discrimination. So this small discrimination is discrimination that exists within the mind stream of ordinary beings like ourselves, who are still on the desire realm. So we have not actually obtained the actual state of absorption. We have not obtained calm abiding, for example. When we obtain those actual states of absorption, when we obtain calm abiding, our discrimination will be vast. But at the moment, our discrimination is very limited. So number 3 is limited or small discrimination. Number 4 is called vast discernment. It is vast discernment because it is focusing on the form realm, or because you can say it is discernment existing in the continuum of a being of the form realm. So we are on the desire realm. We're talking about a realm above us, the form realm. Right? So discernment existing in the continuum of someone in the form realm, or focusing on the form realm, is vast discernment. Okay, number 5 is limitless discernment. Limitless discernment is discernment that we have on the limitless space and limitless consciousness. These are levels of absorption, right? So we have seen that with the 5th one, the limitless, we are dealing with the first two levels of absorption of the formless realm. We come now to the sixth one. The sixth one is called discrimination of nothingness. And this refers to the next level that we have in the formless realm. The next level of absorption is called nothingness. So discrimination that focuses on the characteristics of nothingness is called discrimination of nothingness. So as you can see here, we have given various classifications. Some of them have fancy names, isn't it? So obviously we can have different types of discernment, the small or the limited discernment, the vast discernment, discernment of black, discernment of white, discernment of what is, discernment of what is not, and discernment of of things that exist in the form realms, in the different levels of the formless realm, and so forth. Actually, although we give the lists here and the names, unless you are someone who is particularly studying the form and the formless realms, these things are more or less irrelevant, right? But what is important for us is to understand that there is a mental factor of discernment, and we need to understand what does discernment do? You know, how is it functioning? What does it do? Okay, so we come to the third one. The third one is intention or intentions. So we had feelings, we had discernment, and we come to number 3, that is intentions. So the first text describes this as being mental karma. Intentions are mental karma. You know, when we have classification of karma, we have physical, verbal, we have mental karma. So mental karma are our intentions. And intentions is what causes the mind to enter virtue, non-virtue, or something neutral. So the mental factor of intention and the main mind that is concomitant with that, what it does is directs the mind to the object. You could say it directs and it motivates the mind towards a particular direction. So as you can see here, we have a main mind, and the main mind is going to act in a particular way, is going to engage some area, do some activity. But in order for the mind to do that, the mind needs to be motivated. In other words, there is someone who moves, who motivates, who directs the mind, who says to the mind, you should do this, you should do that, you should do the other. And the one who motivates, the one who moves, the one who causes the mind to do this, that, and the other is intention. So you need to understand that from amongst the 51 mental factors, this one, intention, is the most important. So we say that the mind accumulates karma, isn't it? But why the mind accumulates karma? It accumulates karma having been motivated, directed, given the instruction, if you want, to go in this particular direction or the other. And the one who motivates and directs the mind is intention. So please keep this in your mind. Intention is the most important amongst the 51 mental factors. So if we go into the very basic definition or the explanation of what is intention, we say that intention is the one that directs and motivates and moves the main mind that is concordant with it. All right, so that is a very important function. We see that our mind moves around all the time. It goes here, it goes there, it goes everywhere. It engages forms, sound, and smells, and tastes, and, you know, it moves from here to this to the other. What is it that directs, that stirs, that motivates the mind to engage the form, to engage the sound? What is it that actually motivates or moves the mind? Because actually the mind becomes distracted, isn't it? It's moving from this to that to the other. So what is it that gives that movement to the mind, that direction to the mind? What is it that causes the mind to engage these various objects? It is the mental factor of intention. So it's very good to be aware of it, stop and think about it. And when it occurs, you say, oh, okay, now the mental factor of intention is operating on my mind. So it's very important to understand that both main minds and mental factors engage objects. But this engagement of objects by minds and mental factors are all motivated by this one mental factor. So this one mental factor causes everybody else to engage in different objects. So everybody, minds and mental factors, are motivated by this intention. They are motivated, they are caused to move, they are directed, they are stirred through the power, through the might of intention. And this is something that we need to recognize. If we do not recognize how powerful intention is, we will not be able to stop. When we say that everything happens through the power or through the might of intention, it means that intention is the cause. It causes the movement, it causes that stirring or that of the mind. Here, we're not implying that all movement of the mind, all engagement of the mind must stop, because there are instances where the mind engages virtuous objects. This is something we want to encourage, we don't want to stop. But there are many times where the mind engages non-virtuous forms and sounds and odors and tastes and physical tactile objects and so forth out of attachment. And this is caused by the power of intention. So we say we want to stop all this distraction, if you want, of the mind, but unless you recognize the role of intention, you will not be able to stop that. And if we want to classify intentions, which as we say is mental karma, again, there are 6, because we have intentions to, in terms of contact that comes from through the eyes, intention for contact that comes through the ears, through the nose, through the tongue, through the body, through the mind. So we have talked about intention or intentions. I think intentions in plural is better in English. And we say that this is mental karma. Now, when we look at the division of karma, sometimes it is presented as intention and intended karma. So the intention refers to the mental karma, and the intended is actually physical and verbal activities. Altogether, they make up the list of 10 activities, virtuous or non-virtuous activities. So we have the intention, first of all, and then this might cause us to engage, let's say, in the 3 types of physical activities. We're looking here at the non-virtuous ones, such as killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, or the 4 types of non-virtuous verbal activities, such as the lying, the divisive speech, the idle gossip, and the harsh words. Okay, so we need to be careful here. We use the word karma. Okay, there are a lot of people who think that karma refers to potency, karmic potencies, right? But this is not. Karma actually refers to activity. And if you carry out the activity, you will accumulate that karma. If you don't carry out the activity, you will not accumulate this karma. So, for example, if you go out and kill, you carry out the activity of killing, and therefore you accumulate the karma of killing. If you don't carry out the activity of killing, if you don't kill anyone, you don't accumulate that karma. So in addition to the three physical activities, the 4 verbal activities, if we add also the motivation, we will end up with a 10-fold presentation of karma. So the motivation actually comes from the 3 mental activities, the 3 here we're giving the non-virtuous actions. The first one, covetousness. The second one, harmful intent. And the 4th one, wrong views. With the first one, covetousness, is you are observing the wealth or the well-being of others, the possessions of others, and you have that grasping attitude where you're thinking, if only I could get that, I really want to have this. So this is coveting what others have. The next one is harmful intent. It's very clear. It's like it's the wish to cause harm to others. And the last one is wrong views. Actually, there are so many wrong views, like, for example, denying that there is law of cause and effect, that it operates, or something which is non-dharma, you say that it is dharma. There are many examples. Okay, so if we add all together, 3 physical, 4 verbal, and again, 3 mental, we will have this presentation of the karmic path, the 10 aspects of the karmic path. These things are fundamental and are very important to understand, because when we talk about ethics or upholding the ethics, it means we do not engage those 10 non-virtuous actions. We abstain, we stop, we do not go there. So the first thing that we need to do in order to maintain ethics is to know, to understand, to recognize what are the 10 non-virtuous actions. If you do not know what the 10 non-virtuous actions are, to go around and say, oh, I'm practicing Dharma, I'm a Dharma practitioner, is completely empty words. So without holding the vows of ethical discipline, actually you are not practicing. And in particular, if you aspire to generate realizations of emptiness, of impermanence, and so forth, you have to understand that these objects are, or subjects, whatever you want to call them, they are very difficult to penetrate, and it takes a lot of merit to do it. And unless you have the vows, and vows here means restrain. So unless you restrain yourself from non-virtuous activities, you're not creating enough merit to support your understanding, your realization, and so forth. So the first step is to understand what the 10 non-virtuous actions are. And the second step is to take the vows of restraining yourself from engaging there. This is what it means to have a vow. It says, I stop this, I'm not doing this, but instead I'm doing that. So when we talk about ethics or discipline, we're talking about vows. And obviously vows we have different classes, different levels of vows. You can have tantric vows, vows of secret tantra. You can have Getsul vows, you can have Gelong vows, you can have Gelongma vows, and so forth. Obviously, these are for the Gelong, Gelongma, Getsul vows. These are for the ordained, isn't it? However, you need to understand that the basic vows, which is the morality of abstaining from or avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions, is the main practice and the main vows that the Buddha has given for the lay practitioners. And for example, we can have Genyen vows, we can have vows for one day, or we can have the lay practitioner vows, which is avoiding the 10 non-virtuous actions. So this is something that we can do, and this is something which is within, it's the level of morality that is given for us lay practitioners. So there are some people who say, morality is just for the ordained, it is not for the lay. This is wrong. For the lay people, we have lay vows, and they consist mainly of the morality of abandoning the 10 non-virtuous actions. This is a very important point. You should be very clear about it, and you should do as much as you can, because this is our main area of practice of us lay people. All right, so also, since we're discussing karma here, there are many different classifications of karma. We can talk about virtuous, non-virtuous, neutral karma, or we can talk about meritorious, non-meritorious, or immovable karma, or we can talk about within the context of the 12 links and how we cycle within samsara. We can talk about projecting karma, completing karma, and so forth. We can talk about karma that is experienced in this life, karma that you will see in the life immediately after this, karma that will be experienced in future lives, and so forth. So actually, this presentation of karma is quite vast, is almost endless. So that will be enough for this class here. And let's move into the next one. Okay, so the fourth one is contact. Okay, so what is contact? Contact is the thorough analysis of the emerging object due to the convergence of three things: the object, the sense faculty, and consciousness. All right, so what does it say here? It says that we have contact when three things come together. The three things that have to come together is the object, the sense power or the sense faculty, and the consciousness. So when these three things first come together, we have contact. And what contact is going to give rise to is feeling, right? So prior to feeling, you must have the contact. Contact comes first, and then according to that contact, you have come in contact with the object. This is what it means, right? So consciousness and the sense faculty and the object, they have all come together. And this then will give rise to feeling. So here we are presenting it from the point of view of what is the cause and what is the result that comes from it. So the cause is contact, and the result that will come from that, what will emerge, is the feeling. However, in our presentation of mental factors, as you have seen, we gave the feeling first, and contact comes number 4, right? That's just the order of presentation. So actually, in the way that it is presented here, we understand that there is something happens due to the sense power. Okay, so let's say that we have the eye sense power or the eye sense faculty. That's the same term, right? And it meets with a beautiful form. Okay, so these two things, the eye sense power meets with a beautiful form. So what happens at this point is that it will bring about this an emerging feeling of attachment or liking of that beautiful form. And this is how the feeling is generated. This is how the feeling will come about. When we use the term contact, another term for that is meeting. So we have 3 things that meet, that come in contact. So, when I touch here, my hand meets my flesh, my skin, my arm, all right? Or I have contact, I have made contact. Now we have 3 things that make contact. We have the object, we have the sense faculty, and we have the consciousness. So these 3 things that come together, and when they come together, we have contact. And due to this contact, we are going to generate some feeling. It will be either a pleasant feeling, unpleasant, neutral feeling, and so forth. So this is how we will generate the mental factor of feeling pleasant, unpleasant, and so forth out of contact. All right. So the first thing that happens is the contact, the meeting of those three. And then through that, we generate the pleasant, the unpleasant, and so forth. Okay. So we gave the example of the hand actually touching the arm, and we say when this happens, there is contact, there is meeting, there is touching. All right. But although we use this convention, it is important to understand that the particles do not actually come in contact. There's always a little bit of a distance. There's always a little bit of gap. However, we can say we come in contact because we come close by. There will always be a little bit of wind between, a little bit of air in between, because there is always gap. The particles of your arm and the particles of your palm never quite meet. But we can still use the term I came in contact or I met. So for example, when we say I met my mother, all right, it doesn't mean that your bodies came like this. It means you came close to your mother. It means you were in the same room with the mother. It means the distance between yourself and the mother became shorter, short enough to say, I met my mother. I came in contact with my mother, right? So similarly, we say that the I sense faculty or I consciousness comes in contact with the object, right? So it comes in contact with the object. It means the object is near enough for your eyes to be able to see it. This is how you come in contact with the object. Otherwise, what? Does the object actually comes and, sticks into your eye? If that happens, you wouldn't be able to see. The object would just, you can try with your hand, put your hand over your eye, you won't be able to see, okay? So understand what we mean, come in contact or have contact. Again, when we classify from the point of view of the basis, which is the cause, we have 6, because we have contact through the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue, the body, the mind. We'll come to the 5th one of the omnipresence, which is attention. So the definition of attention is the mental factor that causes the main mind that is concordant with it to engage a specific object. All right, so attention again is extremely important for us, especially when we meditate. So when we meditate, we give, if you want, ideally what we want to do is to have the main mind remain or pay attention to a specific object. It will not be able to do it unless the mental factor of attention is there. So, for example, you want to cultivate calm abiding. When you cultivate calm abiding, what you're trying to do is you try to train the mind to remain on one specific object for as long as possible. So, in order to do that, you need to have attention. It's the mental factor of attention that will make the mind engage that object. So when we perform meditation, analytical and placement meditation, but particularly in the case of placement meditation, attention is very important. If you don't have attention, you will not engage that specific object. Okay, so when we are looking at this group, we talked about intention. And we said intention is very important, number 3, because we say it motivates, it moves the mind, it makes the mind engage certain areas. And then here we have attention, and again, we see that attention makes the mind engage an object. So here we need to differentiate. These two are not the same. Intention is the one that directs the mind in a general direction, general area, general objects. However, attention directs and causes the main mind to engage a specific object. So intention is general, makes you engage something in general direction, I would say, whilst attention is specific object. You engage specific object. So both the intention and attention move or stir or motivate the mind and make the mind engage something. But intention is something that moves the mind or motivates the mind in general, whilst attention makes the mind to turn, to focus, to engage a specific object. So it narrows the mind, makes the mind focus, turn around and look at a specific object. So this is the difference between the two. So from the list of 51, we have covered the first 5. Those 5, the first group of 5 are called the 5 omnipresent mental factors. Omnipresent indicates that they are always present. If you have a main mind, you always have these 5 omnipresent mental factors. All 5 have to be present. If they are all 5 are present, it means that the mind is capable of engaging the object. When it engages the object, it utilizes the object, right? It utilizes the object and it has full function. It utilizes it correctly. If any of those 5 were missing, it means we wouldn't have proper function. The mind could not properly engage or utilize or take this object, okay? So in order for the mind to fully, properly engage with that object and utilize it, we must have all 5. And this is why we have the 5 all the time, omnipresent. Okay, so if, as we say, this, if any of those 5 were missing, the main mind, would not be able to properly utilize, engage the object. So, for example, if the first one, the feeling, were missing, it means that the mind would not have the feeling, would not experience the object, right? So when the mind meets or engages the object, it must have a feeling, it must have an experience. If the feeling is missing, it means it's not experiencing the object. If the second one, discernment, were missing, it means that the mind would not be able to, say with certainty, it is this, or it is not this, and therefore it would not be able to say, I'm experiencing this object, or I'm not experiencing this object. If intention was missing, it means that the mind would not be directed towards the object. If attention was missing, it means the mind would not be able to focus on that specific object. And if contact were missing, it means that then feeling would not be generated, and therefore the mind would not experience the object. So you can see, for the mind to fully engage and utilize the object, all 5 must be present. So these 5 are called the 5 omnipresent mental factors. They are in the retinue of the main mind. Okay, so each one of these 5 has to operate and carry out their activities. If they were inactive, it means that the main mind would not be able to engage the object. The main mind would not be able to do anything. The main mind needs these 5 who are in its retinue to be active, to be doing their own job. But who is giving the order to them? It's the main mind. The main mind is the one with the power. But again, it becomes powerless if those 5 are not operating. But in terms of this terminology, the main mind and the mental factor in its retinue, the main and the retinue, the main is the one that gives the orders, the one with the main power, and the retinue are the ones below the main mind that receive the orders and then go and they do the different tasks. That's why we have this terminology, main mind and mental factors in the retinue, main and retinue. Thank you. We will stop here for tonight.